In this presentation, we will be arguing for the side of whistleblowing not violating company loyalty, based on moral, ethical, and legal obligations, by Meagan, Gress, and Shelby, Glaser. What is whistleblowing? The disclosure by a person, usually an employee in a government agency or private enterprise, to the public or to those in authority of mismanagement, corruption, illegality, or some other wrongdoing. An employee, former employee, or a member of an organization, especially a business or government agency, who reports misconduct to people or entities that have the power and presumed willingness to take corrective action. The misconduct may be a violation of law, rule, regulation, or a direct threat to public interest, such as fraud, health and safety violations, and corruption. Purposes of whistleblowing: to draw attention to unethical, inappropriate, or incompetent conduct which has or may have detrimental effects either for the institution or for those affected by its functions. Situations where an individual believes that an activity is harmful while others involved are not aware of it or reject the perception that is involved. The whistleblowers are prepared to take responsibility for their actions. Implies a concern for the preservation of ethical values, which overrides a concern for self-preservation. Whistleblowers open themselves to the risk of losing personal and financial security, counter-accusation, and alienation, and yet they feel compelled to make the disclosure and to stand by it. Types of whistleblowing: internal, made to someone within the organization; personal, blowing the whistle on the offender. Here the charge is not against the organization or system, but against one individual. Impersonal, external whistleblower. Stages of a whistleblowing act. Stage 1. Is there a potential whistleblowing scenario? Stage 2. Seriousness test. Stage 3. Reality check. Stage 4. Becoming aware of the big picture. Stage 5. Forcing management recognition of the problem. Stage 6. Taking the problem to upper management. Stage 7. Going outside the organization. Stage 8. Living with the results. One does not have an obligation of loyalty to a company, even a prima facie one, because companies are not the kind of things that are properly objects of loyalty. To make them objects of loyalty gives them a moral status they do not deserve, and in raising their status, one lowers the status of the individuals who work for the companies. What is loyalty? Loyalty is devotion to something more than persons, to some cause or abstract entity. Social animus. At most, one can only be loyal to individuals, and that loyalty can ultimately be explained away as some other obligation that holds between the two people. Moderate position. Although loyalty for a superpersonal entity is crucial, loyalty is still an important and real relation that holds between people, one that cannot be dismissed by reducing it to some other relation. Whistleblowing is not only permissible, but expected when a company is harming society. The issue is not one of disloyalty to the company, but of whether the whistleblower had an obligation to society if blowing the whistle will bring him retaliation. Ethical dilemmas of a whistleblower. Supervisor's condemnation. Supervisors or the managers feel that the decision-making process of the company gets affected with the interruption of the lower-level management tattling upon with whistleblowing. Due to this, many employees refrain from speaking up to avoid the conflict with upper management. The employee also feels the fear of losing their job. Colleagues' condemnation. To avoid losing the trust of coworkers, the employee refrains from whistleblowing, which can harm his own reputation among his colleagues, and as there is irregular communication between the employees in the company. Many employees avoid whistleblowing to maintain loyalty and trust with the coworkers. Loyalty to the company. The ethical dilemma of whistleblowing depends on the fact that how loyal a person feels for his company. If the person feels voteless or disoriented, the chances of him being the whistleblower increases. And if he considers himself as an important member of the company and understands the responsibility, does not speak up against the company. Evidence against the felon. No employee would like to wrongly accuse his company or any of the higher authorities of his company of the felony, and therefore does a double check on the evidence he has, as this could affect his credibility. He has more chances of coming up if he has the justifiable reason or the evidence. Famous cases of whistleblowing. Mark Felt was an FBI associate director during Richard Nixon's presidency. Felt leaked information to the Washington Post under the alias Deep Throat regarding the Watergate scandal. This led to Richard Nixon's resignation in 1974, as well as prison sentences for many government officials. Jeffrey Wigand is a well-known whistleblower against big tobacco company Brown and Williamson. Wigand informed news outlets and testified in court that tobacco companies knew of the dangers of their product, but tried to cover it up. Edward Snowden is a former National Security Agency contractor who provided confidential information to journalists regarding the NSA's breaking of federal privacy laws. Snowden broke laws to release this information and could face up to life in prison. He is currently living under asylum in Russia to avoid what would likely be an unfair trial. Edward Snowden is one of the most famous whistleblowers in recent history. He is considered by some to be a hero. Whistleblowers are considered traitors by some, but more accurately fit the definition of a hero. Many whistleblowers put themselves in great danger to help the greater good. They sacrifice their own well-being, including, but not limited to, safety, freedom, and job security. Laws put into place to protect whistleblowers are not thorough enough, and oftentimes are not helpful. Whistleblowers sometimes have to break laws and loyalty for the greater good of the people. The question comes down to following morals and ethics over loyalty. In summary, whistleblowing is an employee, former employee, or a member of an organization who reports misconduct to people or entities that have the power and presumed willingness to take corrective action. The purpose of whistleblowing is to draw attention to unethical practices. It can be internal, personal, or impersonal. When whistleblowing occurs, one does not have an obligation of loyalty to a company. Whistleblowing is expected when a company is harming society. There are laws put in place to protect whistleblowers. Some of these laws are not always helpful. In the end, it comes down to following ethics and morals over loyalty.